Hi, guys.
Hi. Busy man that doesn't have stuff, but it's okay. It's okay, dude.
So good to see everybody.
Nice to meet you. I'm Cam. Welcome to Let's Talk.
Nice to meet you.
Right. How have you been? Long time.
Very long. I've been okay. I've been good. And you?
Good. You know, trying to be like you, man. So
You're our second guest. You know what they say about second. Second is the best.
Thank you. I will do my best. I will try.
So just to get started, thank you so much for joining us. It is such a pleasure to finally see you again after, last time we met was, actually we met for the first time was in New York for New York Fashion Week.
Fancy.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, come to my friend's installation. And then you ended up ratting me out to my mom and my aunt, telling them, I always invite her to New York Fashion Week and she never comes. And they were getting on my case.
I had to tell the truth.
Too. I'm like, how could you miss New York Fashion?
But it was such a pleasure. It was almost like we had known each other. But let's kind of get back like a little bit of history. First of all, how did you're in the industry, you're an entrepreneur, you're a fashion designer, you work with different brands. If you were to describe you, what would you describe yourself as?
Oh, it's a tough one. I would say like I'm like a fashion student, you know.
You consider yourself a student?
A fashion student.
Yeah.
Like I love it. I study it every day, and it's just I think it's a very intriguing place to be in. Intriguing in the sense that if you think about it, when you wake up in the morning and you put on a dress or you put on anything, that is your skin. That's the skin you've chosen, you know? So it's such a huge part of our personalities, of our days, just what we do every day. And it's like you wear your mood, right? You pick something that kind of makes you feel good. Something to complement how you feel, you know? So for me, I feel if I was to describe myself, I would just say I am this eternal fashion student.
Love that.
Yeah.
Was there a designer or any particular moment that made you fall in love with it, whether it was a show or a piece that inspired you? Can you recall?
This moment for me has always been there, but I never realized it until much later in my life. I grew up in a small village in Nigeria. My uncle was a tailor. My mom was learning to be a seamstress. And at home, they would use, they had the sewing machine that's on the table and they use their hand to turn it. And they would use, to learn their patterns, they would use cement bags, cement bag papers, you know? And then they would use those to learn patterns, they would use those to learn how to sew straight. And she would use it to make clothes for me and my sister. And we would wear those clothes, and it used to rain a lot. And then the rain would just rain it off us, you know? Later on in my life, as I remember those moments, they became the most enduring and most enduring memories that I have that actually drove me, that romanticized fashion for me. And from that moment on, whether wittingly or unwittingly, I traveled towards it. Yeah.
So were you wearing the cement bag patterns or the creations that were used from those patterns when you were young?
The creations that my mom had made from those dresses and shirts and stuff.
That's so cool. So like you were a custom designer's model way before you realized it.
Yeah. Well, she was starting to sew.
That's so cool.
Awesome. So you said it was later in life that you started to realize it. So prior to that, where was your interest before you?
Prior to that, my interest was in advertising and journalism.
Oh, okay. And you did that? You actually?
Yeah. So I did go to school for advertising. But much later, I got a job somewhere at a hotel in Abuja doing housekeeping, being a supervisor and stuff. And then I kept sketching. Now my desire is actually grown because now I'm in the big city. I can read GQ. I can see fashion now. Now I'm calling it fashion. I'm not calling it tailoring anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And so this evolution, and then I started sketching, drawing these ideas that I have in my head, and I would listen to music. And the ways that I would translate music in my head would be these beautiful silhouettes, you know? And I didn't really know what they were, but I would draw these figures, and like this was the kind of clothes that I saw in my head, you know? And then as I started on this job and doing all these sketches, I thought, okay, how could now that I know fashion, right, and I really want to do this, so I thought, okay, how could I do this? So I would do this subscriptions to like GQ just to keep me close to what's happening. And then I started applying to schools like Central St. Martin's and just different schools, Antwerp Academy, with these sketches that I was doing. And to be honest with you, I was getting great responses. Like I could come to interview, I could come just so they started to give me some kind of validation that maybe I could do this, you know? So I was working under this lady, she's a British woman, and she was always confused about me. Why am I always sketching these figures? And I told her I wanted to go to fashion school. Then I told her I've applied to all these schools. I don't let Black people go out there.
Oh.
I didn't even know what I was saying. I didn't mean it that way, but I was saying that because for a school in Italy, more than we actually paid the school fees. It was really cheap. The Italian lira was like nothing. So we paid the school fee, but they didn't let me in. I got an interview at the embassy, but they only spoke Italian. So, of course, I couldn't get through. So she said to me, why do you always do this? I said, I really want to go to fashion school. I think after like a year or two, she got really tired of my sketches. And then she said, I tell you what, you talk to your dad. If your dad agrees, I'm going to transfer you to the Hilton in Dubai. I know people there that could help you go to the US to study.
Wow. Fairy godmother.
Yes.
Right there.
Yeah.
You know, taking you under.
So it was crazy. So I was telling my dad, like, you know, I could really do this. My dad was like, what are you talking about? You already
Nigerian parents right there.
Yeah. You already
A doctor, an accountant, you ain't going nowhere. Like what is
exactly.
Yeah.
He was like, you're already a tailor. What do you want? I say it's fashion. He said, what is fashion?
Fashion.
It was so crazy. But eventually, my dad agreed. And she did transfer me to Dubai. And I had to work a year or so with the Hilton. And then they transferred my visa ownership to this guy. She did come through what that guy really was. That guy existed. And then that guy worked for him for about a year and a half. And he moved me to the US. Like the woman said.
Wow.
Wow.
And I got here in March. 3 days after I was here, I was in fashion school. Yeah, I just found a school. They just said, find a school. I landed in Chicago. They arranged accommodation for me. I went the next day to look for schools, and I found Columbia College, and they took me, and that guy paid my tuition, and I was in school 3 days later.
Like everybody that you kind of came across were some kind of like a fairy, like an angel that was like going. So basically, I think it's pretty much something that you had put into you manifested pretty much. You put into your universe.
Absolutely. And I think up to today, it still boggles my mind. And after graduation, I had to make a lot of decisions to like who's going to hire me because now I'm aware of racism. I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
And I was aware that I would have to work like a Macy's and I wasn't cut for that kind of stuff. I just had such an independent streak in me that I didn't know if I could work for anyone. So I thought, okay, maybe I should focus on the things. I was already a really good tailor. So now I had to be a really good pattern draper, a really good pattern maker, those kinds of things. So I got good at those, a really good sewer and a tailor, because they're both different things, you know? So I really got good at those. And when I graduated, I set up my company with a friend of mine. We just set up our company. I would deliver newspapers in the morning, and she would go to look at laundry houses where we could take clothes to do alterations for them. And then at night, we worked on our business, which was scouring newspaper ads for people who wanted patterns to be made for them.
Oh, wow.
And then we got a huge break by this huge company 3 years for that wanted to make patterns. Someone introduced us to them, and we did their patterns, and they told us they had been waiting for years to get those ideas realized.
Yeah.
And we got it done for them. And then from then on, that was it. We went from there to Vera Wang, where we created their first collaboration with Coles. We developed and produced that for them on the lavender brand, which is no longer. And then we went on to do much later. We started with opening ceremony, where we were part of their initial collaboration model, because their model mostly revolved around collaboration with musicians and famous people. And we were a part of that. And we were there for a long time until they became creative directors at Kenzo, and we did their collaborations with Kenzo before they became creative directors at Kenzo. So and then before you know it, we have a portfolio of like who is who. I mean, Kate Spade, Vera Wang, Bill Blass. Oh my God, the list is insane.
Wow.
And today we are probably one of the top fashion development companies that is minority owned. Yeah. Yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you went through? Because first, you mentioned one thing. I mean, I think before you started the business, but you did mention that when you branched out, you hadn't experienced racism until you started. So that's one challenge. What other challenges did you face?
I think the rest of the challenges were purely ambition related. Like, this is where I want to go. And then you have these obstacles that how do you get there, right? I think one of the biggest obstacles for me was my own passion. How passionate was I about what I wanted to do? How determined was I going to be? Because that's the only way I could beat the odds. If I was passionate enough and determined enough, then the odds are just humps I can go over. But if I didn't have that passion, then I can't really beat the odds. So once I made it clear to myself that this was where I wanted to be, then the rest of the obstacles remain even today, which is my ambition to grow my company to be a big fashion group that can rival LVMH in its own little way. Those obstacles remain. A lot of it is access to funding. As a minority company, you're going to struggle with that. But how do you engineer around that? And every day I work on that. I work on what are the leverages I'm going to be able to create to make me look heavy, because people are interested in what's heavy. Among Black entrepreneurs and Black brands, because there's not been a lot of money invested in us. It's not easy to find heavy, So you have to be able to create heavy. And one of those ways that you can create heavy is leveraging. So in fashion, I would say leveraging involves collaborations with people a little bit higher than you, or being really bossy and buying, maybe trying to acquire a brand that you think people would consider heavy. Those are the things that I do now. Those are the ways that I've been able to go around obstacles, and they remain, but you find a way to beat them, or at least reduce how much impact they have on you.
Do you see a limitation when it comes to, when it comes to minority designers and developers like yourself? Because I think one thing is when it comes to fashion, and I'll speak from an African standpoint, once people think fashion, they kind of think like we're monolith, like there is this particular look for Africans. And then I would assume maybe the same for people of color in terms of the Asian community as well, where when they think of fashion or development, they think one way, but you tend to set yourself up away from that. I've noticed in terms of who you collaborate with. Was that very important to you in terms of being able to stand out and move forward, or that wasn't your intention?
No, I think for us, see, fashion doesn't know racism, right? Fashion doesn't know us as black or white or whatever. Fashion is a language that is very contemporary and around where it is, right? In terms of the epochs, right? In terms of the times. So it's a language in a sense, right? So for me, I try to make sure that I am a part of that language, not from a racial point of view, but from a very contemporary point of view, so that I can understand that language and I can speak it, you know? But those limitations, right? Those limitations, I think the less we see ourselves as this monolithic thing, the more that we have the opportunity to be part of a wider group. But there are challenges to that bit because it takes a lot of resource to get wider. So either wider, you get the resources to get wider, or wider comes to you, right? Means that wider recognizes you and comes in and say, no, I want to be a part of your smallness, right? So, and it's just a constant battle as to how you stay relevant, as to how you accomplish that. For me, I think my success is extremely important. I say that because at the moment I'm working to partner with a bigger company than me. One of the things that drove me to this partnership was that I saw a Black man as a minority man as one of the owners of this company. And this is a company that is in the hundreds of millions, which normally I would expect that to be a very monolithic space for white people. And I'm not trying to be racist, but I'm just being very practical.
Yeah.
So seeing him on the board of that company, seeing him as a part of that company gave me so much energy, And I'm thinking, because now I'm thinking, see, I'm trying to do this and I'm seeing exactly why I'm trying to do it. Because when I saw him, I'm already so happy and so proud that he's there. So I've been working the past 6 months to create a fund that will focus mostly on increasing minority presence on the luxury racks. Mm-hmm. Because last year, over 70 billion was spent on luxury in the United States. Of that money, minorities spent 20 billion. So we contributed 30 billion of consumption and less than 1% of production, of product on which those funds were spent. So I'm thinking, when I see this guy on this board, and I'm thinking, the more of him we have, and the more of me we have, if I try my best, then we can actually achieve the goal of helping Black luxury brands aspire to be on those racks, because all they need is a little bit of facilitation. They get an order from Neiman's. They may not have all the money to give you, but if I'm manufacturing the brand and I say, don't worry, I'll do it, I'll give you 60 days to pay me back, right? It goes a long way. They can get on those racks, right? And because right now, money hasn't been spent on Black brands, you're not going to see a Black brand that needs you to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on them. They're too small. So with 50, 60, 80, 100,000, you can do a ton of good to these brands. So that's where I'm headed. That's where I see us bridging those presence gaps. Because right now it's just a presence gap. Are we there? Are we hanging at that Neiman Marcus rack? When I Neiman's rack, right? Yeah. Because our people moving. Our financial mobility is pretty good. So you can't expect a minority guy, an Asian guy, or a black guy who's a billionaire to shop downstairs, right? We got to be up there where it makes sense for them to buy us, you know?
Wow. And I see that you do a lot of, because one thing that you don't know, I mean, though we met for the first time in New York, I feel like I've known him for quite a bit. And he is a very like laid back, he's an extrovert, but more of an introvert. And so to see him hobnobbing with people that you're hobnobbing, I'm like, how do you know this person? What is it? So it's important for you to make sure that you're networking with people, because I'm more of I'll rather chill in the back. And he knows it because he's always inviting me. I'm like, nah, dude, I can't. But is that how pretty much the foundation of a lot of your success in terms of your networking, your partnering, or is it just something being the introductions? Like, what is it?
I think for me, I mostly like to be a fly on the wall, but then I found out that if I'm a fly on the wall, I'm not going to help anybody. No one's going to see because of what I do. I'm actually capable of helping people do things, right? So if I remain far away and they'll never see me and they'll never get the confidence they will get if they saw me, and I'll never get the opportunity to help anybody, you know? Although I'm struggling sometimes because of my ambition, but I'm also somewhere a little bit higher up than a lot of people. So I can actually be helpful either by just being an example because I'm there, or actually being able to say, if somebody is brave enough to say, I want to do this, I always ask them, what is your commitment level? It cannot be 50% because I'm not good enough, you know? But if it's above that, what will make the sacrifices for you, you know? So I think it's a combination of intentional outness for me, like really coming out intentionally where I need to be, depending on the event, or just also seeking out people. Right now, we're seeking out luxury brands that we're curating that we know I can send to Neiman Marcus and there will be no problem. And we're really focusing on this. We say, oh, we're not hanging on these racks, right? Okay, show me a brand that you want to hang there, right? So that's what we're doing now. Fishing out these guys, finding them, and trying to see how we can help them, you know. Yeah. But it's both intentional and
Does it ever make you nervous when you're in the room with like the next step? So the next level that you want to get to or access that you want to get, like, is it difficult for you to network upwards? Or is it just something that you just have a very openness about, like it's either going to work out or it's not?
no, I'm actually quite intentional about it.
Yeah.
Because I found out that in those rooms, they don't expect to see me.
You're a wild card.
But when they see me, a lot of them feel like, okay, he must be doing something to be here, you know? And so I'm not really spooked by that. I just, more than anything else, I would like them to know what I do, you know? And to be honest with you, when I talk for what I do, because as a designers don't do what I do. Designers are either creating their own brands. We're a designer-owned company that focuses on helping designers do their thing, right? So I'm not like a manufacturer who opens a factory and they take your work to do it. I'm like you. I just happen to own a factory too, you know? So we speak the same language. You don't have to interpret anything to me. We have the same quality aspirations. We know fabrics the same way. And I might know them a bit more because I'm doing so much more. And I could say, maybe we should use this fabric. Or If okay, let's say that something needs to sell for $600. We know that we can make it for more than $100, right?
Mhm.
So how do we, the person paying $600 for an item is very used to luxury. How do we achieve that? Making sure that we're still at the cost areas we need to be for it to make sense, right? So how do we innovate around? How do we think about, because quality is material and practice, material and how you make it, right? So material being 70% of quality. The rest of the stuff are just little bits, you know? So how do we conquer that quality bridge, that material bridge? We're working together. And that's where a lot of them don't know how to do it. And we're able to advise. Like now we're developing this incredible polyesters that everybody's using instead of their silk chamoses, right? And we're working with mills in Japan and different places, but they don't cost much. But they are just absolutely luxurious. When we work for companies, I mean, we try not to drop names because, we're under a lot of non-disclosures and stuff. But yeah, we're mostly in luxury. So we're delivering to Lemons, to Sykes, to just a lot of companies globally.
So are you like a designer's problem solver at the end of the day, like trying to figure out how to get what they're designing into a capacity that it can be created and sold with the right equation, basically, the right materials, right method?
Yeah. So we advertise what we don't advertise. So we tell our customers that we're a sketch to store company. We're a solutions provider as a company for designers. And those solutions range from sketch, if we need to help you sketch, production plan, collection plan, to colors, mood boards, fabrics, all the way to delivering the samples for your showroom. And after that, your production, which is a whole different process from sampling. And then all the logistics around that and all the supply chain solutions all the way to drop shipping to your store. So we provide all of that. Nice. So you can give us a sketch and go to sleep and we'll deliver it to your store. Absolutely.
Amazing.
That's amazing. Homeboy doesn't. So
Yeah.
what do you think your parents now would be saying? Like when they say, oh, you were tailoring, what is fashion? What would they say now?
Oh, I don't think they care. Like, I don't think they understand that there's a difference. No. No.
And wait, what is the name Ennui? Where did you get that from? Ennui NY.
So anyway, I've always played on words. So when originally we were set up as Elan. Elan is like when you do something with knowledge, like yeah. Anyway, it's the direct opposite of Elan. So when we had to rebrand, I went the other way. I just feel like anyway, it's like something dull, which is totally the opposite of fashion. But I think opposites elicit curiosity. So that name was just out of how can we make people think, how could you do this? How could you be in fashion and be this name, Yeah.
Well, it was such a pleasure. And I know we can talk to you forever and I can just feel the passion coming from you as you're explaining stuff. And I'm just like, wow, you have a lot that you do. And so to take the time to talk to us today is truly amazing. Do you have any questions or?
I have something to say to you guys.
What?
I hope that you know that what you do is so important.
Oh.
This magazine is a big deal. I mean, I've been a fan of this magazine for years. It's got a very special place in the culture, We don't have enough storytellers, and your magazine is a big storyteller. It's a big story point. So I just want you guys to know that you are appreciated and loved, and yeah, absolutely.
Milestone. You better get me in front of some people.
By the way, I'm coming along for Fashion Week when she goes.
Yes,
just so you know.
Yes, somebody's got to come.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, just don't do it a week before. Give us some time out because he was like, okay, I'm sorry.
We will.
Yes, so
We'll give you
thank
plenty
you
of time.
so much. You are so loved. Thank you for the consistent support that you give, and much love. Still waiting on my shoe, and I'm waiting.
It's coming.
So, thank you so much, and I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
It was so nice to meet you today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, guys. This was awesome.